Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LVV Show, being recorded today in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm here as part of the Global Youth Entrepreneurship Summit 2024, which has been organized by Youth Business International, an organization that BYST helped co-found more than 2 decades ago. Over the last 3 days, more than 45 countries from all corners of the world have been sharing stories, exchanging best practices, and essentially we have participants who are entrepreneurs, NGOs, academia, and from the government. This kind of a rich environment has been brought together to discuss one very important issue: youth unemployment and how can entrepreneurship be a solution. While we are at it, I would love to share with you the good news that a BYST entrepreneur from India who was with me here has won the Social Entrepreneur of the Year award at this global summit. So join me in felicitating and in wishing Kirtana, our entrepreneur, a great deal of success in the future. Today we have with us in Nairobi 2 very distinguished guests. Ms. Ingrid Wakesa, who works with the Technology Transfer Division of the Kenya Industrial Research and Development Corporation, and my friend Ndung'u Kahihu, who is the CEO of CAP-YEI, which is one of the premier organizations to support young people through skill development, both for employability and entrepreneurship. So let me start with you, Ingrid. All of us, you in Kenya, we in India, and in so many countries, one of the interesting things that we have is a lot of young people. And what is exciting about that is they bring energy, they bring talent, and they bring a whole lot of enthusiasm. On the other hand, what we find is there is a great deal of unemployment and underemployment, making this very valuable resource into something of a detriment to development. What do you think is the situation in Kenya for young people? And what do you think is happening in terms of what the Kenyan government is doing to support these young people?
Well, thank you very much. I think the situation in Kenya is not different from any other part of the world. The scale might be a little bit different, but the problem is the same. So we have a shared problem, which we need to address in a concerted effort, in a concerted manner. Unemployment and underemployment is rife. You have people working, or the youth working, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, the ones who can find. And then there are others who do not work at all. When we are talking about the ones who are working 2 or 3 jobs, someone may be in formal employment or some type of employment where they get a wage, but then you also find that they get to engage also in something like online employment, online writing, freelancing, so that they can just make their ends meet. Meaning that what you're getting is not enough to meet your needs. So you have to go for that extra income. And this actually comes at the expense of many things. One, socially, your family, your friends. There's no enough interaction. There's no enough family time. So in as much as you're able to get that money to be able to sustain, you are losing out still on family, which might be detrimental at the end. And also the ones who are not employed, the opportunities are far in between. Over 500,000 to around 800,000 people are released, youth are released into the job market every year. Are we now generating the same to match the people who are coming from the schools or from the institutions to match them to the job market? The answer is no. So there needs to be a concerted effort to create these jobs, and not only jobs, they need to be quality jobs.
Correct.
For us to be able to address the problem in a holistic manner. And at KIRDI, we have various technology transfer mechanisms which are able to address the same. And the government has also put in some strategies. They may not be 100%, but at least it is a start. You have programs like the Ajira Digital Program to make sure that they are digitally ready for the digital economy. The youth are ready for the digital economy. And then we have other interventions such as the Kazi Mtaani programs. This is not full-time employment, it is temporary, and not to all, for just a few, to earn a living or to at least get some income to be able to jumpstart their entrepreneurship journey. But then this still needs to be addressed in a holistic way. Yes.
Thank you. Ndung'u, you have been running a very successful program for skill development. We just heard Ingrid tell us that the government is doing something. It is cognizant of the problem and it is trying to address it. How do you think, from the civil society perspective, how do you see the skill development, status of skill development in Kenya? And what exactly is CAP-YEI doing to address that?
Thank you, Lakshmi. I would not want to disagree with my friend Ingrid, but there is a sense in which the government is doing a lot but not getting a lot done. And the fact that my organization exists is in fact an indictment of the government. CAP Youth Empowerment Institute exists. We train young people in short courses, and we connect them to opportunities to earn a living. There are two major pathways. One, we connect them to jobs. The other one, we support them to start micro businesses and grow them where they eventually become employers themselves. That is what the technical education sector is supposed to be doing. If it was working, we should not be successful at all. We exploit a gap, a niche in the market, first for mismatch, because we don't create our own jobs. The reason we are successful and we do manage to transition 70 to 75% of the young people we train to jobs is because there is a mismatch. The sector that is supposed to be training those young people is not doing it very well. Employers are coming to us because they are saying the public sector is not training the young people properly, at least not to their requirements. The same thing can also be said for entrepreneurship. We are now transitioning between 15 and 20% of the young people that we train to entrepreneurship. Yet, the technical education sector does not really provide them those skills. Many of them have to either come to us or go to other NGOs. I know of other countries where it is taken as a given that any young person who wants to become an entrepreneur is encouraged, is celebrated, and is supported and even allowed to fail. In Kenya, the minute a young person says they want to start a business, the biggest barrier they have to overcome is government regulations that actually some of them don't make sense. It's requirements to pay for permit fees. The minimum is 25,000 shillings. It's a lot of money for somebody who doesn't have money to have to pay that. So yes, there is a problem. There is a need to address the problem. I do think, however, that the beginning of addressing that problem is fixing what is ailing our public education system for young people to be able to benefit from it.
I see a lot of sense in what you're saying. It is very relatable. Can you give us an example of a person that you have helped to become a successful entrepreneur? And what is the process you used to make that happen?
Yes, I'll give an example from, you talked about the conference, the Youth Business International Conference that has just ended. We had about 10 of our young people exhibiting there. I'll give an example of one of the young people is Rashid. There was one booth where they were exhibiting products that they are selling to support young people who want to establish businesses in poultry sector. Rashid has invented a machine that is used to protect newly hatched chicks in the first 1 month so that they don't die. They need a lot of care, but without requiring you to use electricity, which is very expensive in this country, or other means of keeping them heated. So they essentially heat themselves. This young person, just 1 year ago, had dropped out of school in the coast of Kenya in Kwale because his parents couldn't afford to pay for him to even do his final examination.
Wow.
So he came to us, he told us, who were waiting for an opportunity to come up. Today, he is an entrepreneur. He was telling me he had never imagined that he could come all the way from Mombasa, spend time with an international audience, make a lot of money. He made a lot of orders, by the way, because people are excited about it.
Fantastic.
And in fact, one of the other young people they were matched with is from a totally different part of the country. That young person sells eggs. He actually just keeps chicken and sells the eggs. That's what he was selling. But yesterday, he was telling me, I have learned so much from my colleague that I am actually now going to start to become the agent for him. I'll be selling this incubator tool to other young people, because where I come from, it's very cold. Our biggest problem is that when we hatch chicks, many of them die because of the cold, even when we have electricity. So we have a system like this will help them. Those are the stories that keep me actually going. And even when there are so many other challenges, because when you see that kind of transformation,
Correct.
unfortunately, I can't help imagining, what if we could multiply Rashid by 100,000 or 1 million young people like that in 1 year saying, yes, my life has changed because I can see a new direction. This country will change.
Ndung'u has a story. He has the KPIs to prove that his method works. And he has a dream. What do you think, Ingrid, that the government can do to help many more Ndung'us, many more CAP-YEIs?
Well, the story of Rashid is very interesting. Yes, we have to acknowledge that the private sector has been able to come in and also participate in uplifting livelihoods and also in creating jobs. But we also have to recognize that government, as he has said, is doing a lot. We have not, I would say that we have not had maybe the best communication strategy to be able to demonstrate or talk about our outcomes or achievements as government. In terms of multiplier effect, scaling up, the government has been able to set up systems and programs and initiatives which are able to support the entrepreneur ecosystem, especially the youth. If you look at the government agenda for the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, you look at the key sectors that they're targeting. They're targeting agriculture, they're targeting agro-processing. You're looking at dairy, you're looking at leather. You're also looking at textiles, you're looking at tea, you're looking at coffee. All this go to support also the youth, women, and also the disadvantaged communities. They have also been able to set up some infrastructure to be able to accommodate such entrepreneurs. You have sheds, industrial sheds, which the entrepreneurs can be able to occupy, and by that be able to scale up, because now they have a physical address where their business is able to grow in leaps and bounds. You have programs which are being run by the Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute, which center around technology transfer. You're looking at technology training. You're also looking at access to business incubation, where basically an entrepreneur, a youth, a woman is able to be taken from idea screening, idea generation, all the way to prototyping, testing of the prototype, standardization, and even up to acquisition of the regulatory requirements such as the KEBS certification. And apart from that, once they are there, they are not left there. They are also able to access facilities such as common manufacturing facilities. For this entrepreneur or this youth who does not have enough even capital or financial muscle to be able to go and set up on their own out there, the government has provided the common manufacturing facilities where already you have the requisite capital equipment, which are normally capital intensive. But then this youth is able to come and access them and to be able to test market through manufacturing of their products, to be able to sell, receive feedback, and be able to grow. So, yes, Ndung'u, we are able to multiply the Rashids for you. And I don't think it is a competition strategy. It is more of cooperation, talking to each other. sharing information so that now we can be able to drive this agenda forward. Because the youth don't belong to the government only. They belong also to the society. They belong to the civil society. They belong to the NGOs. When the youth are in trouble, we are all in trouble. It does not only affect a certain segment of society.
Correct.
So we have to bring in concerted efforts, talk to each other, share platforms of information.
Why aren't we? Can I ask that question? Because both of you mentioned, and I could be sitting in India, I could be sitting anywhere with the civil society and the government, and this dialogue will be very similar. The question is, the government is keen to provide the ecosystem.
Yes.
They are keen to provide the kind of impetus to the system as a whole in order to create more success stories.
Yes.
Civil society is creating the success stories every day. But somehow we are talking about communication. So, Ndung'u, if sitting right here on this platform, Ingrid mentioned about having platforms to talk to each other. Let us use this platform today and ask, what is in your wish list?
Yeah.
What would you ask Ingrid?
Okay, I will speak to Ingrid as if you are the Kenya government, because you do represent the Kenya government. And first I say, yes, thank you. The government is doing a lot of investing on the supply side of this problem. Or the initiatives that you have mentioned from the leather sector industry, from Kazi Mtaani, from now actually the biggest is on low-cost housing, which is going to employ a lot of young people if everything goes right. But the government fails to appreciate one thing, that the path to employment is not a road, it's a pipe. It's a pipeline that starts from the skilling sector and ends at the employment side of it. The government has not invested enough on the beginning of this pipeline. And that's why organizations like CAP-YEI are able to find success, because we do that. We pay a lot of attention on preparing young people for the specific sector that we have identified that has opportunities for them. That's why we are able to do this. It's not difficult, it's something that can be done, but there are some policy things that actually the government has done wrong over the last 15, 20 years. For example, if you look at our education budget, our government spends a lot more money on university education than on technical education, by a big margin, and that has been going on for many, many years. Yet look at what the ILO say about training, for example, engineers. They say on average, every engineer you should make sure you train 25 technicians or artisans to provide the ecosystem for that engineer to succeed. So what is happening here is that we have that equation upside down. Let's look at just the institutions we have. Kenya has about 3,000 colleges that are meant to train young people for the skills so that they exploit those supply side opportunities. Unfortunately, most of those are under-resourced. The vocational training sector, especially, and that's the biggest portion of that total sector, is barely 50% utilized. It's a resource that has been going to waste for many, many years. These 500,000 you mentioned, Ingrid, who actually get into the labor market every year, more than a third of them fall through the cracks. Yet these institutions could support them if we were able to invest resources to make sure that they get the skills that employers say they need. CAP-YEI does not create jobs, like I said. We exploit a niche that should not exist. If our training colleges were doing their job correctly, that would already provide a signal to the people you are investing in, that supply side, and they would be able to say, okay, I can plan to expand my business because I know the institution that exists next door is going to train this number of people that I would like to employ. It's not rocket science. It can be done. It can be done. We do it. And some people and some other countries that have succeeded, actually, that's how they do it. Actually, that's how India is doing it, actually, with the challenges, yes, but that's how we're able to see those results in economic growth in India now is by fixing that pipeline.
Ndung'u, I do hear you and say that, yes, there are some issues that are being solved by other countries, including India. But let me tell you, hearing the both of you, as I said, I could be transplanted anywhere in the world today, in many, many countries, and the situation would not be would not be completely different. Maybe there are some small things which are varying from situation to situation. But on your behalf, Ndung'u, may I ask Ingrid, because you and I are heading organizations that are part of the civil society and that support young people and so on. So, on behalf of both of us, Ingrid, how would can the government, and you said clearly that it's not a competition. You said both private and public sector and civil society all have a role to play. What would it take for the government to recognize the kind of extraordinary results that organizations like CAP-YEI or BYST are able to achieve, and say, we think that we should scale CAP-YEI, we should scale BYST type of organizations because they are doing a good job. The government need not compete. The government can be partnering. The government can be a source of support. The government can be funding them, whatever ways. There are so many ways in which you can do that. Can the government look at it as to how to scale a CAP-YEI?
Maybe I can give an example of a program that we have been running with the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. I'm sure you know it, Ndung'u.
Yes.
It is private sector. But for Kenya Climate Innovation Center, they are very good at proposal writing, getting yes, very very good.
Yes, no, you're
That is-
right. I mean, these
they're
things
very
matter.
good. Yes, they're very good at proposal writing. They've been able to attract funds. They need not be government funds. They've also been able to attract donor funds who are aligned to a certain strategic direction. And for that, they have the programs which they have set, which we can say BDS programs. And then they also have the programs which they're running for technology support. They have partnered with KIRDI. That KIRDI is now able to offer the technology support as they offer their BDS. Remember, the entrepreneur is one.
Yes.
We are working in one direction to support this particular individual youth to be able to make it in the market. That is one way we can go about it. Writing joint proposals is not magic. It can be done. Another way we can have shared platforms for information sharing. Because once you have the information, if I know what Ndung'u is doing and I'm able to capture it in a platform, and Ndung'u is also able to access what government is doing,
Yes.
basically a shared knowledge management system. There now we are able to leverage on our strengths and capabilities to give the best outcomes. We can be able to scale Ndung'u. He can be able to partner with government. How? If Ndung'u is located only maybe in Nairobi, government has satellite centers. KIRDI is not only, for example, KIRDI is not only in Nairobi. We also have satellite centers in Kilifi and Uasin Gishu and other counties. So if he wants to have a reach in those particular areas, Ndung'u is able to partner with us or any other government institution, including MSEA and KIE, so that he can have that reach. Because it doesn't have to be financial only.
Right.
It doesn't have to. It can also be partnership in terms of infrastructure. Yes.
Yes.
Then both of us win. Becomes a win-win situation.
This is very exciting to hear this in one sense, because we are living in the digital age where communication is supposed to be super fast, super easy, super friendly. And yet, when it comes to a dialogue for something as difficult and intransigent problem like youth unemployment, it is not just a question of information flow. It's a question of having a common objective and sitting across the table and being able to see how do we work together. So for me, it is a learning process, because again, as I say, it is not a Kenyan problem. I am doing this podcast because I want everyone in India to hear. Because if you bring a civil society organization and the government, the dialogue will not be so totally different. True. Maybe in certain ways we're collaborating better, but there are many other ways where I know both parties say, how do we work on the same platform? How do we dialogue with each other? Given that this difficult situation, there are certain segments where women, for example, women entrepreneurs, face even more of a challenge. As it is, we are talking about the kind of more dialogue is needed, more collaboration is needed. But just take this youth unemployment and then add another layer, another dimension of difficulty, which is for women.
Yes.
What do you face in CAP-YEI in terms of the struggles? What do you see the struggles of women, and how do you address some of them?
That it's very true. Women face many problems. In fact, in CAP, because we have worked in Kenya for 14 years now, we collect a lot of data. Sometimes we are able to get those kind of insights ahead of time. 7 years ago, we got an organization from the US to do an analysis of our data, and they did a score that said for every 100 young men and young women who go through our training institutions, the group of men will be 65% as likely to succeed, the women only just under 40%. It has bothered me for that long since then. And we have, because of having conversations with the government, and by the way, Ingrid, it might look like I'm hostile to the Kenya government. I am not. We recognized
That
years
makes
ago,
the podcast very interesting.
I'm not really. I'm not
Right.
hostile. We recognized many years ago that if we don't fix, the government is the elephant in the room. If it can get its act together, a lot of things will happen. We won't have even young people complaining. And so we always try to share what we think needs to be done. For this sector and the problem that you have mentioned, Lakshmi, we have come to the conclusion that it's mostly a question of incentives. The incentives we offer for that beginning of the pipeline that I talked about, the technical education sector, the skilling sector, let me put it this way, is to enroll young people and train them and help them to pass exams. That's it. So that's what the sector mostly does. That's what people are rewarded for. The trainers, they are not rewarded for ensuring that the marginalized come into the door. They are not rewarded for having more women in their class. Or
Are you
for
saying,
helping them.
Ndung'u, that people don't worry about the outcome of women, whether they get into a job or whether they get into an entrepreneurship? Education becomes the end?
Exactly. For most of my colleagues who work in the government education sector, their area of performance is within the four walls of a classroom. That's how I've come to understand it. And when you look at it, it's not that they are evil people. It's just that you do what it is that you are rewarded for.
That is your KPI,
Yes,
and that's it.
And what you could be punished for if you didn't
Right.
do. So one of the things we have
Yes.
actually been telling government officers is, please, let's change the way you supply the funding that runs these institutions. Provide a portion of it that will pay, for example, for how many young women were you able to enroll, but not just enroll, how many finished and how many passed, and finally for all the people who go through the institutions, how many were able to transition to earning a living. And so they say, many times, they say, why should we? That's the labor market's job. We say, no, it's not. It is your job because you are the one preparing the product
Right.
that the labor market consumes.
And you have to sell the product.
You have to sell that product.
Right.
And number two, you have to make sure that you listen to the
Correct.
consumers, because if their tastes change, you want to know so that your delivery also changes. So that's one of the biggest actually challenges. I have kind of narrowed. I know it sounds simplistic. This is the benefit of about 10 years of really thinking about this. I think the very first thing that might need to happen for us to get real change is to change that incentive system. Make sure that people are rewarded for results, not for just enrolling and training.
Correct. When it comes to innovation, when it comes to commercialization of technology, I know that many of our countries are not able to take the innovation from the lab to the marketplace so quickly, but even more so for women. As Ndung'u was just now saying, it's hard for women entrepreneurs to get started. What do you do, Ingrid? How do you see the role of women in technology commercialization? What kind of additional support do you give in order to make sure that women are not just setting up lifestyle enterprises, but they're also involved in technology enterprises and technology growth and development?
What some of the government initiatives around this particular area is that they have been able to ring fence some funding, targeting women in technology, basically in STEM, the science, the technology, engineering, and mathematics, but they are competitive funds. Okay, so you are not just getting funded just because of your gender. It's because you also have the value in the product or in the output that you're supposed to be getting. There are funds at the NRF, there are funds at NACOSTI. And then also some policies which have been able to secure some funds just particularly for women entrepreneurship to thrive. We have the Women Enterprise Fund. These have been able to at least jumpstart the journey. But then also in government, there are women desks for some institutions, not all of them. Some of them are still setting up. There are women desks which have been set up just to be able to address this particular subject. Most of the government right now, they're also being taken through the environmental safety, social safeguards, which get to address gender, women, youth, marginalized, just to make sure that the whole process when it comes to technology transfer, technology access is inclusive, and so that everyone can get to benefit. But then funding, of course, will always be a problem. I've not heard of a government which has said that they have enough funds in any sector.
But is funding more of a problem for the woman
it is
scientist or the women technology
it
innovator?
is for the technology innovator who's a woman, and also for the entrepreneur who's a woman. We don't have, as women, there's no luxury of life stopping if you have other obligations of family. You want to go, you want to have a family, you take some time off. Most of the funding sometimes which comes in, they have a limit on the age. Women, you're told 45 and above, you don't qualify. So these funds are for 45 and below. But then for the man, you'll find most of the time when you're looking at their career path or their career growth, they have not had that particular break. You took some time off to raise a family or to start a family. The man did not. They just introduced some years back paternal leave of 2 weeks. The lady goes on maternity for several weeks, and then they still have to breastfeed if that applies to them. And that has been a hindrance, where now you're gauged on maybe they're running against fertility or family clock. So you're a little bit limited when it comes to that particular space. The funds are very specific. Women, youth, people with disabilities are encouraged to apply. Such progressive funds have been able to come up. It may not be enough, but it is a start. Yeah.
Definitely.
And it is all over. It is worldwide.
Would it be fair to say, just with us dialoguing here openly, that we all agree that whether it's in Kenya or in India, our youth is a demographic dividend. But if we do not address the problems, they are going to be a demographic disaster. We all agree on that basic principle. We all agree that there are good, well-intentioned schemes that the government is putting through, whether in your country or in my country, and that there are remarkably the people who deliver on the ground, such as the CAP-YEI or even at BYST. The challenge seems to be, and I really don't know whether we have a solution at the end of this podcast, but certainly what comes through is that we all are saying, how does a public-private partnership really work on the ground? How does the government schemes, which is there but still not reaching the targeted group, and how do private sector and civil society, which is doing a remarkable job, quite often under very difficult circumstances, with very little funding and resources, seem to be delivering? I think that dialogue, we talk about public-private partnerships in building roads today or in building bridges. Shouldn't we be talking about public-private partnerships for youth unemployment? Or shouldn't we be talking about public-private partnerships of the kind that delivers social good? It's not just for infrastructure. I think we need a more creative way of looking at how do we partner with each other? How do we dialogue with each other? Do you have any
Yeah.
concluding
I have some
thought on that?
Yes, I have some thoughts. Kenya has invested heavily in physical infrastructure over the last 20 years or so. And it's a good thing. And that infrastructure, I have no doubt, is going to drive development. The piece that is missing is the human infrastructure.
Right.
Exactly the point that you are making. And I like to say this, if you could spend 1 trillion Kenya shillings every year, which is the average every year for the last 15 years, on building roads, electricity networks, and all that, surely you can afford to spend 100 billion on training the people who are going to exploit that infrastructure to grow the economy. It doesn't, and the government doesn't spend even that much on the technical education sector. Yet I don't see any other path to us realizing this demographic dividend, Lakshmi. Kenya has a population of 50 or so million people. 19 million young people aged between 18 and 34. These are the people with the energy and the ideas. They're just wishing that they were given the chance to realize them for themselves and for the nation. Yet today, we actually, when you listen to some of our politicians, they talk about them as a problem because they are the same young people who are rioting on the streets, demanding jobs, demanding better governance. But surely, the fact that, people forget very quickly. Just a couple of years ago, we had the Arab Spring, driven by a similar demographic upswell of young people who reached a point where they ended up becoming a problem. We don't want that to happen in Kenya, and I actually don't think it necessarily has to happen. We just need to fix this problem of fixing the human infrastructure, providing skills. It should be possible for a Kenyan young person today wanting to gain a skill as a cameraman, for instance, to be able to do that irrespective of where they came from, whether they were poor or not. It should not be the reason. Yet today, that's the biggest barrier, is that they do not have the resources to pay. If we were able to build all the roads more than 50,000 kilometers, we can skill the 4 million young people we are being told today are at home because they have no skills. They are not in education at all because they have dropped out. They have no jobs, and they have essentially no hope. It should be possible for us to do that. If we do that, Kenya will change for the better, in my opinion. One thing I like to point out is this generational resource, 19 million young people. There are countries in this world who would kill to have what we think is a problem. Yes. It will not come again. Not in our lifetimes, definitely. It may be not in the history of the world that's left. Africa is the only continent left where the population is growing. It's the last one. It's declining actually already, even as we speak. So I really, really hope that we are going to arise and make use of this. I would like to end by challenging organizations like myself and you as Lakshmi, because I've also seen a trend where many of us are not willing to share the resources of those small experiments that work. CAP-YEI is trying to lead the way. 2 years ago, we decided to share everything, and we did. We published all the work we had done for 10 years, made it available for free to anybody who wants to use it. And the other thing I see is many times just losing hope. The government doesn't listen, okay, and you throw your arms in the air, walk away. I'm challenging organizations like us that, number one, share what you have. It's for the good of the world and the young people. It probably is the way you'll get that information used more closely. But number two, don't give up on the government. It cannot be avoided. We have, whether we like it or not, the government is a fact of life. And we will not succeed if we try to work around it.
Wonderful. So here you are, Ingrid. Neither Ndung'u nor I want to lose hope. In fact, we live on hope. We are ready to share, and we want to share because we want to see that whatever successes we have gotten gets multiplied many times over. So, we appeal to you. What are the ways in which you, as Kenyan government, and this applies again to the Indian government too, in many ways, local, regional government, national government, doesn't matter. What can you do to help us keep our hope alive? What is it that we can come to you and say, we don't want to come with a wish list of all the things you need to do. We want the government to come forward and say, you're doing a good job. I want to multiply what you're doing. I want to be there and support you. Very often it happens that NGOs come with a set of demands. Do this, do that. Give us more concessions, private sector too. We are not asking for any of that. We are just saying, what can the government do to just take our examples, our processes, our capabilities, and help make that reachable to all the population, to all the young people?
Okay. The government, one, will have partnerships. It may look as if we are not so open to partnerships, but we love partnerships. And we thrive on partnerships because we know, basically, when you look at the government's role, most of the time is to create an enabling environment so that your organization and Ndung'u's organization are able to thrive in what they're doing. Public-private partnerships, very important. We're welcome to them. Doors are normally very open. I don't think there's opportunity where we are talking about enabling or capacity building our youth that the private sector wants to undertake that the government can say no. We have examples from Safaricom. They are engaged very actively with the government in delivering that particular mandate. You have the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, which has been able to detail for the government, these are the problems that the manufacturers are facing, and the government is trying to address that. The government has also gone ahead to set up technical vocational educational centers, the TVETs, where proper skilling that is matched to industry is able to be delivered to the youth. What Ndung'u has said when it comes to finances to access the particular education is true, but you see there are also initiatives which the government has put in place. You have the loan facility for those who are able to access it. Not all of them, unfortunately, are able to access it. So how does the private sector also come in this? There are some scholarships which are being offered. There's the KCB Foundation, which is offering scholarships. Cooperative Bank, you also have Safaricom Foundation, and many other organizations, including civil society, so that we are all able to work in one direction, together, so that we can be able to achieve the goals that we have set for our youth. And as I said at the very beginning, when the youth are in trouble, we are all in trouble. It does not go to divide. They do not select. It is everyone. If you're not youth, you are going to solve their problem. Okay? So I think this engagement is very important, like starting with this conversation, because sometimes even it just starts with a conversation. Because Ndung'u might be thinking that he's not able to approach KIRDI. The doors are wide open. You're very much welcome. Rashid, the innovator who has the chicken incubator, the one that is I think it gets body heat from the chicks.
Yes.
You see, I've been able to see it already.
Yes.
You can see the potential.
Yeah, I have seen it. When he needs any technical support to be able to upscale, to even improve, KIRDI is open. When he needs a facility where he can be able to place Rashid, so that Rashid can say, I have a manufacturing facility at a certain place. If KIRDI is too small, there is KIE, which is open. When it comes to finances, government financing institutions are open. There's the Youth Enterprise Fund. He can be able to access. If Rashid was a mina, there's the Women Enterprise Fund. Also other funds which were still at the nascent stages, such as the Hustler Fund, which just to offer the financial solutions, which we can all be able to explore. So I don't think that the door is closed. Private sector and government, they are bound to work together. We are yoked. It cannot be separated. You cannot just say that this is private sector and this is, you have to work together just for the common good of your people. Yeah. So the doors are open. Rashid, please feel free. Come, let's have a conversation and let's unlock what is looking as if it is a giant standing in our way. But I don't think it is such a big deal. We can be able to unlock the potential that lie with our youth and also with our women.
When I started this podcast today, I did not think that we were going to be playing the role when we bring in a preeminent civil society organization and the Kenyan government to dialogue through this podcast and through BYST. We are absolutely delighted with that outcome. Let me take it just one step further and come up with another idea. Ndung'u and I are planning to work together on creating mentorship for entrepreneurs. That is key. And one of the ways in which we are going to do it is we're going to collaborate. So, Ingrid, we have your promise now that when we come up with a program of that kind, we are going to come to you and appeal to you for support. So that here is an example of all of us working across public-private partnership and across countries, across borders. Wouldn't that be an extremely positive, most fruitful outcome of a podcast like this?
Yes,
I think so.
that would be great.
It would be wonderful. We started at each other's throats. Now we create an opportunity that benefits hundreds of thousands of young Kenyans. And one day we can say it started in a small room where we wanted to talk.
I am absolutely delighted that is one of the outcomes of this podcast. Thank you so much, Ingrid. I really appreciate your taking your time out. Thank you, Ndung'u. I know we have spent the last 3 days working with entrepreneurs, but I could not have asked for a better outcome than to have the two of you join me in having such an honest, open dialogue. I really appreciate the fact that both of you laid all your cards on the table and both of you were honest and open, looking for avenues. I think that may be the first thing that we need in order to create this partnership. Thank you, listeners. I sincerely hope that what you saw today is going to be the kind of things that you're going to continue to hear in the LVV Show podcast. Thank you so much.